In its first Summer Invitational exhibition, Stanek Gallery presents 13 very accomplished artists whose work reflects a diversity of styles and techniques.
I'm Louise Strowbridge. I have two different series in the show, and the most recent one is called Seeing in the Dark. I made the handmade paper and I dyed it over and over, very, very dark indigo. And the collaged papers are also made by me, some dyed, some other things. And they're all pretty dark. I made the pieces after the election. I started thinking about when you go out in the pitch dark, eventually you start to see, your eyes adjust. So that's my teeny bit of hope that eventually we'll be seeing in the dark. The other series is abstracted landscapes. They're 10 by 10 inches. I made 36 of them. 4 of them are in this show. Doing 36 pushed me to really think about the horizon line to more and more unconventional ways. So there are 4 landscapes, and you may not see them as landscapes, but that's how they started.
Hi, I'm James Brantley. I enjoyed doing landscapes ever since 1963, a graduate of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, studied with Lou Sloan, Hobson Pittman, Morris Blackburn. The large painting is a conceptual work. It's not of any city in particular. I call it Brickyard. Growing up in the urban center, these are the kinds of structures that we're most familiar with. I used to do work on site, plein air paintings of the city and rural areas. I used to go to the Adirondacks. But then I realized that my studio is where I really do the best work. My art instructors used to always tell me, James, get out of the studio and go out on site. But once you've seen it, your brain is of a certain nature that you take pictures and you never forget them. So most of my paintings are dreamscapes. I dream of skies, of flying, and I really enjoy that. That's something that I would do probably if I never sold one. I'd be like Van Gogh. So, okay.
Hi, my name is Mel Dion. I paint primarily in watercolors. I have 3 works in the show. One is an invented still life. One is a deconstructed flag. And one is a little study of a finch. I transitioned to watercolors from oil after studying at the academy. And it really is an exercise in patience for me. Working in watercolors, it started to kind of seep into other parts of my life where I have to kind of stop and think between strokes and make very mindful marks on my paintings rather than going and going and going and adding and adding and adding, which is how I used to work a lot. So, yeah, watercolors have made me a better person.
That is a perfect artist statement.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Gregory Presta, Gord.
My work consists of gritty, urban, contemporary landscapes and cityscapes, trying to capture the energy of the times we live in. I mainly try to paint from spirit, try to get the paint really thick, create a resin and create a body, almost like a sculpture would do. I'm trying to mix abstraction more with reality, trying to incorporate a lot of things that are going on in the world. Cuba, I was there, it's a beautiful place. There's just a lot of conflict, but what a great country. A lot of just falling apart buildings, and the government owns everything, and it's like really kind of amazing way to live. We don't think about that in America, but there are other places in the world that have peace in a different way. They have a lot of struggle, but a lot of peace, and I try to capture that. Cuba has been falling apart since the 50s, and they're trying to piece it back together, but there's this beautiful energy about it, and I love the colors and the vibrations of it all, and that's why I paint it.
Hi, I'm Deborah Krakow. I am so privileged to be here at Stanek Gallery in this show. My paintings, I'm 62, and they're about this journey and where it's brought me. I paused in painting a couple of years ago to try to understand exactly why I was doing this and put art in its place in my life. These paintings are the reflection of that and how art has become richer for me and putting it where it belongs, along with laundry and dishes and mothering and being a wife. And it's good. It's part of the weave of life now. These particular paintings are about glory. I've been studying the glory of God and the magnificence of that. So I wanted to reflect that whole wonder that most of us don't stop and pause and see in nature.
Hi, I'm Mary Amicos. I have work in this exhibit, mixed media work on paper, and then I also have 2 canvases, which are oil paint primarily. The work starts in different ways because of the materials, and my work is process-oriented. It makes sense that if I start with paper and I'm dealing with ink and watercolor and pencil work and that type of thing, that it would develop very differently than canvas and oil. The work on paper frequently will start with a lot of water, pouring of ink onto the surface to get an idea going, running things under the sink again, and then a gradual layering going into grease crayon and that type of thing at the end.
Are they based on nature?
They're not based on anything. As I said, they're process-oriented. They're based on my response to the materials.
So they're not based on a visual memory or?
No, not that I'm aware of. No. No.
So they're not an equivalent of a beautiful day at the beach?
No, not at all. No.
Just a little bit?
No. I don't like the beach for one thing, but no, really not. No. And they don't get completed in one day. They get started always in the studio, and they could be worked on a day and then not touched again for weeks.
Now, Mary, if I were to ask you to do a little Greek dancing for my video, would you say yes?
No.
Are you sure?
I just did Greek dancing at a wedding reception in South Jersey.
Is there a video of it?
I don't think so.
Oh, damn.
I'm Nicole Michelle. My work in the show are landscapes built mostly from memory. Sometimes they're a combination of 2 different landscapes or what I remember from a specific landscape, and they're built from color and formed over time into the imagery. They're not specific places. They're really more of an impression of a place. Even the forests are constructed to be familiar, but they're not actually plein air work. They're oil pastel on paper. I use a thick watercolor paper so that I can scrape down the oil pastel and work in transparency and layers and go back and rework the material over and over again. So most of the pieces are worked several times before they're finished.
Colin Hagopian graduated from PAFA in 2009. I missed her at the opening, but she told me about her work by phone.
My name is Kala Hagopian, and I'm a Philadelphia muralist and fine artist. In my work, I explore the juxtaposition of realistic elements with colorful shapes and patterns, whether they be landscapes, cityscapes, animals, or figures. I often integrate those realistic elements with patterns and decorative pieces. A lot of my work draws inspiration from the beauty and complexity of nature. So even in a cityscape, I'll integrate patterns that are based on the natural repetitions that can be often found in nature. A lot of my subjects come from personal connections and life experiences, places I've been, people I've known.
I love how she transforms these life experiences into her magical style of painting. I talked to the artist Roger Chavez about his work in this show. Roger loves artists like Soutine, Gustin, Serge Charcoun, and Morandi. There is a wonderful unity in Roger's art. He has some figure paintings of himself that he has worked on for a very long time. At first glance, the other pictures all seem to be landscapes. But it turns out that this one is actually a still life of teacups. The first thing you notice is his muted palette. He told me that the grays are all mixed from the prismatic or rainbow colors. He said, "People look at my paintings and think there's no color. But if you start looking closely, there's a lot of temperature in those grays." I talked to Pittsburgh native Patrick Lee a year ago by phone. He told me that although he has extensive experience as a plein air painter, working directly from nature, he also does many studio paintings, almost wholly from his memory and imagination. His artful blend of abstraction and realism is a carefully considered strategy. He likes to see just how much he can leave out and still ensure that the image is descriptive and evocative of a mood. He loves a quote by Ernest Hemingway, "When you write something, take out all the parts you think are the best and see if it can still stand alone." Patrick said he wants his work to be like poetry, seeing how much you can say with the fewest words possible. After graduating from PAFA in 2012, Christina Weaver got her MFA in 2014 from the University of Indiana. She now lives in North Carolina and couldn't make the opening. So I asked gallery director Katherine Stanek to say a few words about Christina's incredibly evocative paintings.
I was first introduced to Christina's work by another artist in our gallery. And at first look, one doesn't think of a style representational or abstraction. The first reaction is intrigue and this desire to investigate further, and that's what I really like about her work. She's just further proof that traditional training does not dictate what or how you paint. It simply means that you have the skills to follow your instincts and paint what inspires you, uninhibited. Christina does exactly that. There's dimension and purpose to her application of paint, yet there's a spontaneity that gives life to her abstract qualities. I really enjoy her work.
Katherine Stanek also talked about another North Carolinian who happens to teach drawing at the University of North Carolina in Asheville.
Tammy Bell Do is an impeccable draftsman, but she's also a narrator who renders her interpretations in her drawings. She doesn't just draw interiors and portraits. She creates this atmosphere with personality and figures with character and experiences. So it's evident to me from what I see in her drawings that she investigates and relates to her subject on a deeper level than just capturing likeness or rendering shadows. When you're viewing her work, you're communicating with these characters. You're existing in their space, and you connect with the subject, almost forgetting the artist's role in this experience. You can't just look at her work. You're drawn in and you experience it. And it's our mission here to provide an art experience. And with Tammy's work, we're doing exactly that.
Stanek Gallery's Vanessa Waring talks about sculptor Jack Elliott.
Sculptor Jack Elliott has 3 areas of expertise in teaching, and they're visual, industrial, and ecological literacy and design. He's been a professor at Cornell University for 16 years and views design as a strategy for action as he attempts to apply his expertise and means toward positive change. In Argentina, we're confronted with a massive piece of silver maple, an indigenous American species known for rapid growth and urban tolerance. But with extreme weather events associated with global warming, these trees are increasingly becoming damaged, causing their wood to become brittle. When in the presence of Jack's work, you can feel it completely absorbing you, not only because of its size, but also because of the sense that something so poignant lies beyond the surface. We're getting a great response to these pieces already, and it's been wonderful.